Hello, all. It's good to see you guys. I hope that your family and you are safe and well. And I think that we will all get through this. I think the economy will open up in the not too distant future, and it'll probably be regional. And it's interesting because this chapter 15 on distribution, is actually one of the more drier chapters in the marketing series. But what we're going through right now has actually made this the most relevant chapter there could be at the moment. So I'm going to go through the PowerPoint. I'm not going to hit every single little thing, but I want you guys, as always, to connect it to the class. Okay, so I want you to understand that this class is relevant in your life, and nothing more than the supply chain right now is more relevant if you've been out searching for toilet paper or hand sanitizer or anything else. So let's get started. I'm going to start by talking to you about, let's define what marketing, the distribution is. And it's the P in the 4 Ps, right? So let me pull up the PowerPoint just a second here. And if you give me just a moment. All right. Let me try that again. Share screen. Thank you for bearing with me. Well, that didn't work. Let me try it again. Okay, so here we are. So let's just start by taking a look at the terms. Marketing intermediary. It's a fancy name for a middleman. And they're the people in the middle. So sometimes you hear, oh, selling it at wholesale prices, and that's a great thing. But there's a reason that marketing intermediaries exist. They do a lot of different things. And one of the things they do is they make it cheaper to buy goods. And that might come as a surprise because we don't think that wholesalers make things cheaper. We just think they get things cheaper. So if we could be a wholesaler, but in fact, as we go through this, you'll see that they do. The channel of distribution is the supply chain. You hear a lot about that on the news right now. So what kinds of marketing intermediaries are there? There are wholesalers, okay, which they get the stuff and they sell it to other groups, other places, and then there's primarily to retailers. Retailers are where you and I purchase things from, the ultimate consumer, and agents and brokers, they do not take title. So you think of it as a real estate transaction. So you're purchasing a house, you need a real estate agent or a real estate broker, but that person assists you in getting the house, but they don't ever take title. And we have that not just in real estate, we have that in a large number of commodities, whether you're talking about almonds or walnuts or oil. These are people that facilitate the transaction, but do not themselves take ownership of it. And sometimes they'll take legal ownership and not physical receipt of it. Why do we need them? Okay, so they make marketing tasks faster and cheaper than most manufacturers could provide them, and they provide the exchange process to make things more efficient and profitable. So this is a really helpful, I think, let me go back to it. By the way, these slides are also on our Canvas site, and you can see them yourself. What you'll notice is that when you have wholesalers or marketing intermediaries, middlemen, it makes things a lot simpler. And the big thing I want you to get out of this, if you look up here, it says the channels at the very top for consumer goods versus channels for industrial goods. You'll see the difference. The supply chain is very short on the industrial goods or business goods, very long for consumer goods. So that is a big difference between the two. If I am purchasing A computer, it might go through a lot of different hands. But if I'm purchasing a server for the college that's $50,000 and I need it to be running by the time students need to register, well, I don't want to deal with a million people in between. I want to deal with either the company that makes it or one level removed. So it's a short supply chain, whereas with a product like a pack of gum, it's a very long supply chain. It goes through many hands. So the cheaper, more standardized, less complicated, goes through a lot of different hands, whereas a industrial, a more expensive business product will have a very short supply chain. All right. This is a great slide as to how they create exchange efficiency. If I wrote a book and wanted to have it sold at Barnes & Noble, I went to Barnes & Noble and said, hey, can you carry my book? They would say, yeah, tell you what, here's a list of our distributors. If you can get one of them to carry it, we'll carry it. Why? Because they don't want to deal with individual authors or publishers. They want to deal with a handful of distributors. And that's, otherwise it'd be way too complicated, way too messy, way too difficult if they were dealing with every individual that's written a book. So, three key facts. You can eliminate them, but you cannot eliminate their activities. In other words, everything from the, there's two pieces, right? There's the actual physical distribution, and then there's a process of procuring the items at the best price and storing them and insuring them and making sure that they are in the condition, and packaging them or repackaging them to get them the way that your customer wants them. And these intermediaries, these middlemen, they specialize in this, and they can perform it faster and cheaper than other organizations can. They might add some cost to the product, but their value, and in the long run, they actually make the products cheaper. So this is really interesting, okay, because we're talking a lot about food right now. And, is there enough in the grocery stores? And entire industries are shutting down for the moment because they aren't able to have their workers come in to process pork, beef. And so it's interesting when you see what the costs are. I've got a great article, and there was a study done a number of years ago, but I've never seen a study like this, where they look at which counties in the US, where does your food come from? And which counties are producing and shipping out most of the food in the United States, and which ones are receiving them. And LA County is interestingly both the #1 producer and receiver of food products, followed in terms of producing food products and shipping them, Fresno County, followed by Stanislaus County. And actually, if you look at the top 10, 9 out of the 10 counties for food distribution are in California. That tells you everything you need to know about us being the breadbasket of the state. So 6 types of utilities. What the distribution piece does is these are the 6 types of utilities it is able to accomplish. So as you can see, we're going to go over these briefly. Form utility, and the example they have here is Starbucks makes coffee the way the customers want it. They have the raw materials, and then they change the form to give it to you exactly how you want it. Time utility, you get the product when you need it. So the idea of grocery stores being open 24 hours, or Amazon has their 2-hour shipping, as does Target on certain products, and that's referring to the time utility. Place utility, adding value by having products where people want them. So a convenience store, that sort of thing. In other words, making sure that where people want to buy them, those products are available. Possession utility. Possession utility is, for instance, what we talked about before with agents and brokers, the idea of real estate. Information utility. Two-way flows of information. So where can you go and what are the places you can go to get information? All of those kinds of things, uh, from websites to going to the library and checking out a book or reading the newspapers and magazines that may still be there in print. Service utility, how to use the product. So the Apple Genius Bar, which is awesome. And when you're having a problem or you just need to know how to use your device better, is a great example of that. Now, wholesalers primarily sell to other businesses. And Costco, for instance, sells as a wholesaler, as does Smart and Final, but they also sell to retail, to customers. So they serve both, but there are many, majority of wholesalers only sell to other businesses. And so as consumers, we're familiar with retailers. That's where we get our stuff. So let's talk about retailing. About 42 million people are employed there. Those people are hurting right now because if any of you work in retail, you know everything is closed and you are not getting paid for the most part. Retailing has been going through a real transition, a change because of the online experience. It started probably about 20 years ago and has just sped up in how this happens. So let's talk about some of the strategies. The retail distribution strategies, three in terms of distribution: intensive, selective, and exclusive. So an intensive strategy, you would think you'd want your product everywhere. So, if somebody wants to buy it, I want it to be available. But that doesn't always work. So think of it works for things like candy, gum, soda, things that you want to quickly and conveniently access. So you want them at an AM, PM, or a 7-Eleven. But if you have a product that's kind of expensive or you want people to think of it as a high quality product, we don't think of things available at your local AM/PM as being high quality. So you want to go with more of a selective distribution and not have it just available everywhere. And there have been products who actually got killed. In other words, they did not survive because they were in too many outlets. And I'm thinking of a perfume that came out many years ago that used to be available at uh, Macy's and Nordstrom, and it was also available at places like Mervyn's, which no longer exists, and Penny's. And the price was exactly the same, but people who shop at Nordstrom or Penny's did not want to believe that they were buying the same items as were available at Penny's. So selective distribution is important based on your marketing strategy for your product. And exclusive is where there's only a one spot. So if you're buying a new car and you want a new Toyota, you can only go to the Toyota dealership to purchase that. It is not, a brand new one cannot be purchased anywhere else. So let's talk about the different kinds of retail stores, department stores. Millennials seem to not be in favor of them, and they have really gone out of style. And the problem with that is that they tend to be your anchors for malls. So what happens to malls? Sears is already gone. So now JCPenney is on its last leg, and I don't know if they'll be back after the pandemic passes because they are really hurting. So department stores are just what they sound like. They have different departments. They carry a wide variety of merchandise at different price points, depending on, Sears is different than Nordstrom, for instance. And they were very popular over the last 50 years, 100 years actually, but in the last 50 years was their heyday. The next one's a discount store. You're very familiar with them. Those have done very well. Walmart, Target, and Kmart, which again, isn't around anymore. The supermarket, I'm familiar with them, and they've had some issues trying to compete with your warehouse clubs, which have become very popular. Your Costco, your Sam's Club. You guys all know what a convenience store is. A category killer is very interesting, and they have had a huge impact on the distribution and supply chain. So when I was growing up, there were bookstores, and they were small and cramped. It was a B. Dalton's, And then I remember when they built the first Borders in my neighborhood, or the first Barnes and Noble I ever walked into down at Arden Fair, and I thought, oh my God, this is amazing. I can sit and read a book here, or look through it, and I can go and have coffee. And versus the B. Daltons were small, little. There was no place to sit and look at books. You just had to buy the book or sit down on the ground. And those actually killed off the very small bookstores, and now the online purchasing has killed off the huge, beautiful Barnes and Noble and Borders for the most part. You see that also in hardware. You used to have your local hardware store that you could go down to and get some help. Now nobody thinks to do that. It's Lowe's or Home Depot. So those are category killers that specialize and are so large that they become the go-to place. Outlet stores, familiar with outlet malls, and specialty stores. Again, jewelry stores, shoe stores, bicycle shops. It's interesting, those have actually declined as well in terms of numbers. All right, so let's talk about the two parts of retailing. There is the walk into the store retailer, this is the actual physical store, and then of course there's the non-store retailing, and the obvious one of course is online, right? We go online, we can purchase almost anything. Telemarketing, we don't do as much of that anymore, but there's still the sale of goods and services, whether it's insurance or somebody trying to get you to donate money for, some nonprofit. Types of social commerce, you can look through this. I'm not going to go through each and every one of these, but these are huge changes that have happened in my lifetime, not just because we're online now, but the ways in which we're online. The fact that I can sell a used piece of item to someone anywhere in the world. I mean, I can put it on places like Poshmark or ThreadUp. We get a lot more peer recommendations. I always look at reviews not only of what the experts say, but also what normal people like you and I might think of the product. You think about Yelp. And they're not the only ones. They're just the most popular. Crowdfunding, crowdsourcing, daily deals. I know Amazon's constantly hitting me with, hey, I'm a deal on this right now. Lots of shopping apps out there, social network shops. Instagram influencers have become a occupation. Who knew? But and again, very few people can have the numbers to make that worthwhile. But this has all changed how we sell things and how we buy things. The individual now, you don't have to be a big store in order to sell something. You can do it right from your home. So let's talk about other non-store retailing. We've talked about the online presence, vending machines, kiosks, carts, and pop-ups. And pop-ups have become very popular in the fashion industry. Very low overhead. I mean, you can. It's interesting. You don't think about this with food, but the food truck has become a cool hip thing, and their overhead is a lot less, virtually nothing, compared to the person who has to have a sit-down restaurant for you to go to. Direct selling to consumers directly. Think of all the TV channels and so forth, and or multi-level marketing, which is a little bit different. You think of it in your home, like an Avon or Mary Kay and those kinds of things. But there's so many: Pampered Chef, Cookie Lee, Zapata. If you the candle parties, there's and what it is this person. Another one somebody just talked to me about the other day was Plexus. This person says, I've used this product and it's fabulous, and now have a party, invite your neighbors and friends, and they don't have to buy anything, but if they do, you get a gift and a percentage off and so forth, and that has grown dramatically. And as you hire the people come on, if you bring your friend, decides she wants to sell too, you get a percentage of what she sells, and so on. So that's why it's called multi-level marketing. And there's always confusion about, well, isn't that a pyramid scheme? No. The difference between a pyramid scheme and multi-level marketing is this. In a pyramid scheme, The only way you can make money is by bringing more people in, and they're not selling you a real tangible product or service. That's not where they're making their money. In multi-level marketing, I am selling Zapata jewelry. That's where I'm making my money. I can make more money if there's more people that I bring in that sell under me, and I can make a percentage of whatever they're selling. But that's very different from a pyramid. A pyramid is illegal because only the people, there's always somebody left holding the bag at the bottom. And if I'm at the very bottom of Pampered Chef or Zapata, I can still make money because you're buying a product. And by the way, the lady who started Pampered Chef sold it for almost $1 billion to Warren Buffett, Berkshire Hathaway. So there's a lot of money. And by the way, everybody gets involved because they think they're going to make a lot of money. And a lot of people do make a lot of money, but it requires focus. It requires persistence. And that's difficult to maintain over time if it's a part-time hobby you're doing. All right. Let's talk about supply chains. Yes, supply chains, exciting stuff. This is the sequence of linked activities that take something from being a raw material to a finished good to the person that wants to purchase it. And that's what right now we're thanking truck drivers, we're thanking grocery store people, because they're getting us ultimate consumers, the things we want and need. Supply chain management is the process of managing all the different pieces of that. You may own them, you may have a contract with them, they may be independent contractors. There's many different ways that this works. The process of getting things to the place you want them when you want them is logistics. And that actually comes out of the military, because the military, if they need to get huge amounts of things all over the world, and you can't say, oh, we ran out of bullets and we're being attacked. No, everything has to be there. We ran out of food. So making sure that the actual physical flow of materials and goods gets to where it needs to be at the time it needs to be there is key. I'm not going to go over all of that. You guys can see it. I just wanted to share with you this, the different transportation modes. Rail, even though we don't think about it, is still a very popular way and cheap way to ship goods from point A to point B. Trucks, even, I won't say even better, but in many ways, because they have flexibility. They can go door to door. And many times they piggyback. So you'll have the railroad container, which is inexpensive and weather doesn't bother it, snow, sleet, fog, and it can just go. And then it gets to where it stops, and a truck will take that same container and piggyback it, put it right on its what is that called? The tractor trailer thing in front, and off it goes to the stores and where it needs to go. They do the same thing with ships. Ships are very inexpensive, but they're very slow. So pipelines used for things like water, oil, etc. And airplanes, yeah, things get there, but not everything can go via air. And it's very expensive. So it's not a lot of stuff gets shipped that way. Mostly railroads and trucks are very common, and ships as well, as long as, you don't need this stuff right away. Intermodal shipping is what I was just talking about with piggybacking. It's the same thing. That's what it means. You're using multiple modes of transportation. It might come on the ship to the port in Oakland or Long Beach, gets off of there, and might be put onto a train and sent to Omaha, Nebraska, where a truck might pick it up and take it to where it needs to go. So there's lots of different modes of transportation used for the same job. Storage warehouses versus distribution warehouses. If you drive out to West Sac, there are a lot of distribution warehouses. We're a very popular place for logistics, for supply chains, because think about it. Well, you got the 5, you got the 99, we're centrally located, 2 hours from the Bay Area, 2 hours from Nevada. You got major interstates, you got a port, you've got train. So we are, and we have fairly inexpensive land compared to many other places in California. Uh, in a storage warehouse is where you're storing it. It's not the place where they're, and it goes from there to the distribution warehouse. Okay, so I'm going to stop. We're done with the PowerPoint. I just want to talk to you for a moment about the whole shipping issues we've been having. Not having enough toilet paper on the on the shelves in the stores, and running low. Now the new thing is jigsaw puzzles because everybody's home and they're doing puzzles. The next thing is going to be personal grooming products, as people can't go and get their personal grooming done, haircuts and that sort of thing. So it's interesting, because one of the reasons for this is that everybody went at one time to buy these 10 things, and there's a sense of panic and hoarding, which is causing the issue. Now, on the other side of that, though, behind that is the fact that people aren't producing in the numbers that they were, and they weren't planning to need this much stuff. When it's Christmas time, we know that people are going to be buying these things, and so there is a push to have more stuff in the stores. We didn't know that this time. So it's the shelves are filling up again, but it's going to take a little time and a little patience. And yet we have one of the most efficient and effective distribution systems in the entire world. And you can see that by the fact that for the most part, everything is back to normal in the stores, as opposed to those empty shelves we saw for a couple weeks. And I'm going to end it here. If you have any questions, you can email me, and I will be happy to try to answer them as well as I can.